Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everyone. Thanks to all for joining this session. We have about, I think, 240 people and over have registered, and I'm sure there will be more trickling in due course. Let me also start off by apologizing to people who cannot make it. I know for some parts of the world it's still very early in the morning, but rest assured, this meeting will be recorded, so you can have access to the information later on. My name is Assaad Masri, and I'll be, I guess, guiding this session there. The objective is to bring our community, in terms of authors and readership and so on, up to speed with the latest developments in combustion flame in terms of best practices and so on. Interest in combustion flame has been increasing over time in terms of authors wanting to publish in this journal, and you can see this from the couple of plots that I've showed here. That's on the left-hand side. You've got submissions to combustion flame starting from 2008 to 2025, and that's increased from about 400 submissions a year to about 2,000, and the acceptances on the right-hand side also are consistent with that. So there is a strong interest from the community in wanting to publish in combustion flame. And hence this webinar is really to guide the community and then bring everyone up to speed in terms of our consistent guidance to authors as well as to readers. So the session will include three speakers, the two chief editors of Combustion Flame, Professor Thierry Poinsot, who will talk for about 10 minutes or so about submission templates and about authorship policy. And then that will be followed by Professor Fokion Egolfopolous, who will be talking about statement of novelty and significance, and for about 10 minutes. And then from Elsevier, Lantice Brett will talk about the responsible use of AI and declaration requirements. We'll have questions at the end of the three presentations, not in between, just for efficiency purposes. Okay, so I guess we can start now with Professor Thierry Poinsot for about 10 minutes.
So good morning. I'm not sure. Good morning, good evening to all of you. It's the first time we do that, but I think it's a good idea. So I will start here by describing some aspects of what's been done for combustion flame recently, and then Fokion will elaborate on that. We're trying to answer questions that we get, basically every day. So the first question is the submission templates. That's due to the fact that we have more and more submissions. You've seen the numbers, 2,000. A big issue is the length of the paper. And the process that we use today relies a lot on the size of the papers. As you know, we need to review all these papers, and huge papers are very difficult to review. We also know that very long papers are a problem. So we're going to talk here about two things: the length of the manuscripts and also the novelty. Novelty and significance will be addressed by Fokion. I will talk about the length of the manuscripts. So we know that combustion flame should be reasonably long, but we know also that long papers today don't live very well. We need shorter papers. So the decision we made after a long discussion was to say that we wanted more than ProCI, which is 8 pages, but we wanted not more than 14 pages total for combustion flame. The big question about word counts, is that it's not really interesting to give a number of pages or a number of words if you cannot enforce it in the right way. So that's where we decided about a year ago to make templates like it was done actually for ProCI, and we've been enforcing that for almost a year now. So the way it works is quite simple. We want authors to use either a Word template or a LaTeX template that we proposed with Elsevier, and they are the same, so there's no advantage to use one or the other. They are available online. I will show you in a minute how to do that. And now this is the tough part. If the paper is more than 14 pages, it is rejected. Okay, so 14 and a half is rejected. Okay, so it has to be shorter than 14 pages. So it's very simple. We don't have to count the number of figures, multiply by 200, subtract the, no, whatever. 14 pages, that's all. That's all that's allowed. So just to be clear, this is the guideline on the right side here. We believe that the rule here is good because for each author, it's good to know that you cannot cheat, okay? Of course, we don't expect you to modify the formats. The formats are fixed. It's not something you should change. You can use either one. And again, anything beyond 14 pages will be rejected. But remember, we can use the supplementary material today, and a lot of things can go into the supplementary material. There's no reason to put, a full chemical scheme in the text of the paper. So many things can be put on the supplementary material option of Elsevier. So just a technical point on how do you get the templates, because that's what you want to know. You go to sciencedirect.com. Here you go to Commercial Flame, of course, and there you go to the guide for authors. In the guide for authors, you have this use of word processing software, and here you get the two templates. You just click on them and you get the one you want. Okay, very simple. So we believe that this works well. Actually, we only copied what ProCI was doing, and I must say today maybe 90% of the papers come under these templates. When they don't come under the template, usually we ask the author to modify and to put the paper under the right template. Another point, which is maybe critical, but it's only 2 or 3 times a year, we would like, and other journals do it differently, but we don't want to change the list of authors in the paper. In other words, when you submit a paper, you should think seriously before submission on who is going to be on the list or not, and not modify it afterwards. We know that this can be an issue for certain papers, but if you want to change the list of authors, then we will have to ask you to withdraw the paper and resubmit it as a new one, so that, again, we don't want to start playing with the list of authors.
Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody. I will continue with the topic of novelty and significance. As was explained earlier, Professor Masri, the number of submissions have gone up by a factor of 7 since 2007, when we started the electronic submission. But the most important thing is the impact factor went up by a factor of 6. These are big numbers. Now what happens is we get those 2,000 papers, 2,200, whatever we get is here. And if you look at the papers, of course, some of them don't meet any criteria, but there are some very good papers that are technically correct, but often incremental. So the key challenge, something that came up in 2022, late 2022, in an editors meeting, is how can we improve further the quality of the journal by understanding the contribution other than the correctness. Correctness is one thing, but it doesn't. A paper that is correct does not necessarily is a good paper for combustion and flame. So we established this requirement for novelty and significance in April of 2023, and that helps us to have an early editorial decision. The statement tells us whether a submission by you is publishable, first of all. And the two questions we're considering is this genuinely new, or why do we do this? Why does it matter, okay? And everything you write in this statement must address those questions. This is not a formality, it's a filter, right? So that allows us to make a decision whether to proceed or not. And if we cannot, sometimes personally I go back and forth with the authors. If I cannot see that they satisfy these requirements, I don't process the paper. Now, I know everybody's busy. Everybody doesn't pay the necessary attention to these details. However, Frequently, I speak for myself, I get a lot of papers from people that do very good research. However, what the statement is not, and that happens sometimes, is not an abstract. Sometimes people send me abstract of a short abstract. So make sure that you understand that the statement is not an abstract. Don't tell me novelty and significance is not what lasers you use or what DNS you did, etc. Right? We don't care about the description of your methods. And of course, don't tell us that I measure a list of what you have done. That's not part of the statement. What you need to demonstrate is four things. First of all, clear gaps of existing knowledge, why you do this. Then a measurable advancement beyond what was done before. Third, is it relevant to combustion science and or applications? And fourth, you have to provide concrete justification for publication. What defines novelty? New data are not novelty. Or you change the pressure, you change the temperature is not novelty. Must change your contribution must change our understanding or our capabilities. Clearly, you have to differentiate from what was done before. And another test you can do is, would that change how people think about a specific topic? Significance. Significance is not a vague argument that this is useful for future work. Must impact clearly theory, modeling, and all real systems, and must explain why this matters, basically. How to structure the statement, start from the gap of knowledge, state what is fundamentally new, explain what is matters, and this is the sequence: gap, novelty, significance. Language and clarity, something that we have seen over and over and over. Don't use this language like we measure ABC or results show XYZ. Instead, for example, some examples, you say some models we have failed to do whatever, and also this work establishes a new understanding or new physics or whatever that we do with our work. And also, please keep it short, 50 to 150 words. A few examples here. One is for ignition delays. I'm not going to read it here. The weak statement says, oh, we measure propane air at 10 to 20 atmospheres. Everything agrees, and these are good data for modelers. That's fine. But we don't want that. We want something that says, why did you do these measurements of propane air at those conditions? Maybe because the models are not, or the data are not consistent with existing models, for example, right? And this new data allows us to basically revise the models or understand new kinetics path, etc. That's a strong statement. Now, another statement here is soot formation. Again, a weak statement is, oh, we measure the soot volume fraction, and these are new data and will help the soot community. It's not good enough. So, for example, these are all, I made up these stories here. For example, you can say that changing the composition of the mixture, the existing models cannot reproduce what we measure in the laboratories in terms of soot. And this new work we did found new pathways and improved predictive capabilities of models. That's a strong statement. Finally, one on turbulent combustion. Somebody did DNS, and you did DNS, and you analyze the flame structure, and the results provide insight into turbulent combustion behavior. This is a very weak statement. A better statement would be basically, for example, again, I made this things up, that current models fail to capture certain transitions in flame structure in different regimes, combustion regimes, and this work allows us to find new scaling parameters, etc. New physics, something new. Okay, so these are three examples of weak and strong statements. In closing, the first test before submission is what is new, what gap does the work fill, why does it matter, and finally, if it's unclear, then the paper will not meet the CNF requirements. That's all I had to present today. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Fokion. So Again, let's proceed with Lantice's presentation. And
Yep. Hi, I'm Lantice. I am the Elsevier Publishers for CNF. And today what I'm going to talk is the Elsevier's policies about responsible use of AI and the declaration requirements of generative AI tools. So our policy for authors emphasizes responsible use and the need for disclosure, whereas our policies for editors and reviewers focus on protecting the author's confidentiality and data privacy rights. So Elsevier will monitor ongoing developments in the area closely and will adjust and refine the policy as appropriate. So what I'm going to share today is our current policy. We are currently revising the policies, and we are expecting the new policies to be available in the coming weeks. So please always check the guide author of CNF and Elsevier's policy page for the latest policies before submitting your papers. So for authors, when applied responsibly and with human oversight, we support the use of AI tools, including AI agents and deep research tools, to synthesize literature, identify research gaps, generate ideas, and assist with content structuring and language polishing. However, please note, AI is not a substitute for human critical thinking. Authors are responsible and accountable for the content of the manuscript, including accountability for thoroughly reviewing and verifying the accuracy of all AI-generated output, editing and adapting all material to ensure the paper represents the author's authentic and original contribution. And of course, disclosing the use of AI upon submission. A statement will be placed in the published article for transparency. So ensuring data privacy, IP, and other rights by checking the terms and conditions of any AI tool you use. If AI tools are used to analyze and draw insight from data as part of the research process, this should be disclosed and described in detail in the methods section. So you can find Elsevier's AI policies on our website, and I will share. So the links will be shared with the Combustion Institute and can be distributed to all the attendees. So our policies for editors and reviewer, we don't allow the manuscript, upload the manuscript into an AI tool because this may violate confidentiality and author rights. And we also don't allow to upload peer review reports or editorial decision letters. They may contain confidential information as well. So generative AI should not be used to assist in the review, evaluation, or decision-making process. So we are actively evaluating and exploring a compliant tool that enables safe and secure use, and we may revise this policy in the future. So we also have a policy for the use of Gen AI in our work, which states that we don't allow the use of Gen AI to create or alter images in submitted manuscripts. The only exception is when AI is used as part of the research process, as is the case in certain research fields such as biomedical imaging, and in some cases we require a full disclosure. And the use of Gen AI may be permitted in some exceptional cases, but generally we do not allow a permit in the production of our work. And you can find all the details of the policies on our policy page as well. Okay, so let me go next. So on the CNF's guide for author, we have a section called Declaration of Generative AI in Scientific Writing. In this section, you can find all the detailed requirements, and including a statement example, and also where you can, and a section of that statement. So please check guide for author carefully before submitting your paper. And as I mentioned previously, what I've just shared are our current policies, and there will be new policies coming out very soon. So please stay updated with that. Thank you. And that's all from my side today.
Thank you very much, Lantice. So we're ahead of time, in fact. So we have plenty of time for questions and answers. We have two questions now on Q&A. The first one, is there a minimum page limit? That's over to you, Professor Poinsot.
Yeah, no, there is no minimum page limit. If it's really small, then it will be a brief communication, but we receive papers which are only 7 or 8 pages, so there's no minimum. But the maximum is valid even for the revised version. That's the second question. So we know it's a problem. When you revise the paper, you may have to add some things where you have to be sure that it still fits within 14 pages, because otherwise these things will get out of control. So that could be a difficulty at the moment of the revision.
And for brief communication is what, about 3 pages max, 4 pages max?
Yeah, Fokion, is it three pages? Short communication, 4, something less. I think it's 3.
It's 3 pages, exactly. Yeah, 3 pages.
Very small.
3 pages for brief communication. Yeah. Okay, so that sets the limit. So 3 pages maximum for a brief communication, 14 pages maximum for a full-length paper.
The guide for authors describes everything in great detail, basically, right? Whatever submission you do, it's all there.
Yeah.
Can I answer? Okay. Can I answer the third question, if possible?
Regarding the supplementary material, please go ahead.
Right. So the supplementary material. The supplementary material has to be used to upload material that is not essential for the review, for reviewing and judging the quality of the journal. For example, you did 50 measurements. You can put 15 measurements in the main text and say, okay, I have 35 more measurements, which don't show anything new but are very useful data. So you cannot put in the supplementary material anything that influences that the reviewers need to use in order to judge the paper. Now, there is an exception to that nobody's using, unfortunately, and we have implemented it now for many years, is the following. Back in the days, we only presented 2-dimensional figures in our journals because that's all we could do. I forgot when we started this, but it's been a while. Now we say explicitly in the guide for authors that if you have a video from an experiment, a video or 3D video or a 2D or 3D video of an animation from computations, you can always upload it as supplementary with the understanding that that will be reviewed. There is no way to insert a video into the PDF. So in summary, you cannot use the supplementary material for essential material. And second is you can always use a supplementary material to upload videos and animations. And I'm very surprised that very few use this option.
Right, clear. Thank you very much, Fokion. Question about AI, that's over to you, Lantice. What are the steps Elsevier and CNF are taking to ensure the authors submit papers compliant to the Gen AI policies?
Yes, thank you. So we do we constantly update like our guide for authors, and as publishers, like today what I'm doing is having this author webinar at the CI town hall meeting to explain in detail about our policies and requirements. But it's ultimately rely on authors to be transparent and to declare their usage of AI.
Thank you. So, I mean, that's a difficult exercise, though, Lantice, right? I mean, if someone, I'll ask a question about the reviewing process, for example. You said explicitly people are not supposed to upload the paper on AI, obviously, because that's breach of information and confidentiality. What if they do? How do you check that a reviewer has or has not done that if they don't want to declare it?
Yeah, we currently don't have any useful, reliable tool. We have done a test. There's a tool that to detect AI usage, but it's 20% 25% false positive. So that's why it's not fair to use those data to use those tools, because it may give the impression like wrong information to editors. But if authors or editors suspect the reviewer has used AI in the review policy, even though when they shouldn't, we do have a pop-up message in editorial manager on reviewer screen to tell them, to inform them the current policy and they shouldn't use AI. If they still use it, we may flag the reviewer in EM, and editors may decide perhaps they won't invite those reviewers in the future.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Another question from Jackson Crane. Does a 3-page and 14-page limit include references? Terry?
Yes and yes.
Yes and yes. Okay. Good. Okay. Question from Therese. Hi, Therese. So while reviewing papers for the upcoming ProC, only a few included a declaration. I expect that this will be more common going forward. Some examples, some state they used AI to perform literature review. I think we need a guide for reviewers where to draw a line, what is acceptable use, otherwise the declarations have less value. Or we develop very different standards. What are the editor's thoughts on this? So that's an open question to all, including Lantice, I guess.
So for Elsevier, we have very clear policies stated on the guide on our policy page, and also have pop-up message to remind reviewers what they shouldn't do. Shouldn't use the AI tool to review for their to assist with their review. For authors, we constantly promote transparency is very important, and it's very common to use AI nowadays. They should just disclose it transparently. So I think that's more a lot of effort that we can do to keep promoting this exercise. Eventually it will become a common practice for authors. We do have a new policies which is slightly relaxed for the editors and reviewers, which will be coming up soon. For those when they're available, we will also send a notification to our reviewers and editors.
Yeah. Okay. Terry, anything to add, Fokion?
Not me.
Yeah, we could spend days discussing that. I think we will not escape from it. The whole question is, where do we draw the line? I agree. For example, when an author says, I've used ChatGPT to do the literature review for me, it will be standard procedure if it is not today. They will all do that. So I think that it's a very complicated question. I don't think we have an answer to that.
It is a difficult question, and also funding agencies are also struggling with that in terms of what to allow and what not to allow. But I want to go back to Lantice on this with respect. I know, Lantice, you mentioned disclosures and so on. Can you, and it's probably detailed in the policy, but can you articulate that verbally again? When should people have a disclosure statement on the AI? I mean, if I take a paragraph, for example, that is written as part of a review or as part of a paper, and I pass it through AI to just give me a better input, a better text. Should that be disclosed? I mean, getting AI to do a literature review is probably the extreme, but just go over, if you don't mind, the disclosure conditions. When should people disclose that they've used AI?
Yes. So for what you say is for polishing the language, in that case, yes, we do request a new section be added called Declaration of Generative AI and AI-assisted technology in the manuscript preparation process. And they need to stay, so author need to stay what tool they have used in order to for example, like this case, polish the language. After using the tool, the author, they confirm that review and edited the content as needed, and they take full responsibility. So that part for the language polishing or for the preparation of the manuscript, that will be required in this declaration section. However, if they use AI to analyze the data to draw new insights, in that case, as part of the research design, like combustion and AI use, etc., like that, then they need to disclose this in detail in the material and methods section. So editors clearly understand which tool they use, which version they use, and perhaps if editors have doubts of the generated content, they may request the author to provide the version that's without the basically the AI generated version and the author's and the version without AI's input to verify the result. So that's for the research process, material and methods. Language polishing preparation, a new section called Declaration of Generative AI Use in Manuscript Preparation Process.
Right. Thank you. And I guess the same applies to reviewers as well. When the reviewers also have to declare that, hey, I've used AI in my review process.
So our current policy currently doesn't allow reviewer to use AI as in their review comments. They may reveal the confidential data the author has. So because depends on the tool, if it's an open environment, then that's what they input onto the AI tool will be used for the model training, and that could leak the author's data. So that's the same. We advise author to carefully select the AI tool they use, because they may, without their intention, they could reveal their confidential data or design to the public. So currently that's a rule for reviewer, not use AI at all. But we do have a new policy under review, which I believe if it's not changed, it will. So a lot of reviewers, their institution may have a closed AI environment. In such cases, they may be able to use AI, but that's not be confirmed and released yet. So currently, for all reviewers, we do not allow them to use AI in the review process.
Period. Okay, thank you. A reviewer may use AI to improve the writing of the review, upload the review itself for editing by AI. This doesn't involve uploading the paper to an AI tool. Is this allowed? I think you just answered the question. The answer is no, right?
No, currently no, because you could mention some confidential experiments that shouldn't be revealed.
Right. Okay. Thank you, Lantice. What mechanisms are in place to detect and handle biased or low quality reviews? I guess that's maybe we'll start with Fokion.
This is very subjective, and we read the reviews, and the reviews are only advisory to us. So, for example, if two reviewers say reject and the third reviewer says minor revision, and we read the reviews and we detect some, as they say here, low quality reviews, or something that is maybe personal or conflict of interest, then quite frequently we do this. We will accept the paper, and conversely, it happened to me. I had a paper with two minor reviews and then one reject, and I rejected the paper. So this is not a voting system, and it's only advisory to us, right? So if I read the third review that says explicitly that this particular paper contains a lot of errors in equations, in formulations, in whatever they do in experiments, I reject the paper. So yes, we do read the papers, and we do read the reviews to the best of our ability. Nothing is bulletproof, but we do our best.
Thank you. Terry, any comments?
I think also the question was, is there any automatic mechanism, like, for example, an AI, screening the reviews and all that? And the answer is no. The only mechanism we have is to have editors. That's the job of the editors. And I think that's really one of the places where it would be difficult to replace the editors, because we read the reviews and then we make decisions, and there's just no other mechanism than that one. The reviewer, the editors have to do their job. I mean, that's their job. But no AI does it first, not for the moment.
True. And reviewers, even though, I mean, they do this for service, as a free service to the community, I think it would be great if reviewers give as extensive a review as possible, rather than just say good paper accept or bad paper reject. That doesn't help the editor much, does it?
Yes, absolutely. Depends a lot on the reviewer.
Two questions. Thank you, Thierry. Two questions. I have reviewed several papers since the introduction of the new template, which were not prepared in the new template. They most certainly were beyond the page limit. Given how strict this limit is, should we as reviewers reject the paper on this basis? Thierry?
Okay. As soon as you talk about that, you hit the famous question of the word count. What I do when people don't use the new template, I'm using the word count system of Elsevier. And if it's more than 10,000 words, I reject it and ask them to move to the new template. So normally, the paper that you get, if they are not in the new template, they should still be under the 10,000 word limit of Elsevier. If they are more than that, I don't think reviewers should worry about it, because if you start doing that, the authors will start arguing about how you count the words and saying my figure was a small figure and then blah, blah, blah. And it's not what you are here to discuss. So normally you should not get papers which are too long, but they should all be in the new template. I agree. Everyone has to move to the new templates. On the long term, it's the only solution. And it's working. We get less and less papers on the old template.
But Thierry, this check on the 10K limit this should be done before it's sent to authors, isn't it? To reviewers, isn't it?
Yeah, I do it. So normally I'm surprised that, but again, if a paper is not in the template, how do you count the words? We go back to how much is a figure, how much is an equation.
Yeah.
And long, discussions between authors and reviewers, it's a pain. So, yeah, definitely, we could argue. Maybe I think we're going to do it soon. Pretty soon, if the paper is not in the right template, we're just going to reject it right away and ask the author to put it in the right template.
That makes sense.
I would like to add something, Assaad.
Please go ahead, Fokion.
I understand that since we implemented this change, there is some authors don't feel very comfortable. They want to go beyond that. They want to have more flexibility, and I fully understand this. From my experience, I've seen a lot of papers, because we do have, many of us have PhD students, right? Doctoral students who prepare the thesis, and usually the introduction was, had 80, 60, 70 reference, etc. The point we started discussing this, actually, that the so-called 10,000 word limit is a little bit artificial. We're trying to be a little bit more generous than proceedings. The issue is this: we started this based on the following argument. It has been established that all the top journals in the top journals in science and engineering, at least, their papers are short. So if you want your paper to be recognized, if you want your paper to be read, more important, if you want your paper to be cited, make it short. There is the so-called art of abstracting. We're all here, we're scientists, engineers. We have the infrastructure to be able to weed out some of the items, some of the paragraphs in our papers that do not change the message. So that's why we have the supplementary material. And one, it's not too hard to squeeze down your 15,000 word paper down to 9,000 or even 8,000. You can make your point. Everybody knows why we're doing combustion, right? Everybody understands. ends in a we don't have to repeat all those things. You don't have to repeat the global warming. All this stuff is known, right? You say low carbon fuels, you don't need to say anything else, right? So that's what I'm saying, that people, I'm reluctant to read very long papers because we're all very busy, right? So that's the argument why we do this. And I believe that the 10,000 words are already, it's already a relatively long paper. That's my opinion.
Thank you, Fokion. The second part of the question is about references. Since we now have the 14-page limit, would the authors consider moving the references out of the page limit? So this is now in line with the current ProC manuscript format as well. Or was this decision taken to prevent excessive self-citations?
Yeah, that's the reason was really to limit the size and to limit also the number of papers that each of us is citing all the time, so that a citation is important because it takes some of your word count. And so that's why we included it in the 14-page. I remember talking to Fokion saying it's going to be 12 pages plus references, 15 pages. I mean, we ended up with 14 with references. I like the idea that this limits the number of references, so that if you cite someone, you must be sure that it's the right guy.
Yeah. Thank you, Thierry. Question. Sometimes you can tell that the reviewer has used AI in their review. What would be the right approach there, Lantice?
So I would still say, I'll say still respond to the reviewer's questions, still revise based on the recommendations provided. As an author, you do want your articles be processed and published. But when you can also in parallel flag the signs you spot to the editors. So it will be editors and I will then review whether we can confirm the use or not.
So they should flag it to the editor that I suspect that there is an AI intrusion here. Okay.
Exactly, but with all the evidence they can provide. So please don't flag considerably, and when you just flag when you're sure.
You have to be careful there because that's a usual insult of the authors to the reviewers, saying, "Oh, this review is so bad; it was written by an AI." So
yeah. I mean, one needs to be careful there. That's exactly right. Yeah, wouldn't it be safer for the author to just leave that issue to the publisher, to you guys, rather than just risk insulting the reviewer? I mean, the concern of the author there is to address the technical questions and get their paper published. So I think, issues of whether they suspect AI use or not, I mean, to my mind, maybe should be left to you guys.
yeah, but he also suggests that there is a problem and we get 2 or 3 times the same thing for the same reviewer, then probably we will take action. So I think, it's right for the authors to complain. I mean, I complain also, so if the review really is bad or really comes from an AI, I think we should know, we should, work on it.
Okay.
There is a way to tackle this. And I'm teaching a class now at my university, and I gave them a computational problem, and I asked them to do XYZ, and 30% of the class gave me almost the same answer, which was wrong. So what I'm saying is that if this happens again, I mean, it's impossible for 2,000 papers or whatever we don't desperately reject to do all the screening, but in those cases, sometimes if we can tell, I mean, I can see how AI is reviewing things, right? Homeworks and other stuff, right? It's not exactly like human. So it's possible that 2 reviewers will do the same thing. We get the same answer, therefore we disqualify them. So, but again, there is a way we learn from AI also, right? We also, by humans, this is a new thing. We learn. Personally, I learn because I'm teaching, right? And I see what the students do, right? So I can have a feeling, but again, with 2,000 papers, I'm not sure.
Yeah.
How bulletproof that can be.
Yeah, it will have to be from if editors did not spot it and then pass it on to the author, it's because they couldn't confirm. But if author has noticed any obvious evidence, they can flag to the editors. And like Thierry and Fokion say, if we receive multiple complaints against one certain reviewer, then perhaps we can be more sure that that's the common practice for this reviewer, and which shouldn't be happening. And this reviewer may not be invited to review again.
Yep. Thank you, Lantice. Question from Professor Mansour: how to list the contributions of authors? Does the corresponding author select from a given list during submission for each author, or CNF has another technique in this new template?
It's done by the corresponding author as indicated in the guidelines. So normally there are indications in the guidelines on what you should indicate in this paragraph.
Okay.
I know that this is relevant, but I can bring this up. We get papers as we speak in which there are substantial papers, yes. They do a lot of experiments, a lot of modeling, and there are 18 authors, 18, 1-8. So to me, there's nothing I can do, but it always raises a red flag. Why 18 authors to do a certain piece of work? Do you put as a co-author everybody in your laboratory or whatever, right? So that's a unrelated issue, but it's an issue that we may want to address in the future, but I don't know what the mechanism is.
Yeah.
Another comment here on this question. For the moment, we allow only one corresponding author. I know that certain people have asked to have two corresponding authors. For the moment, we don't, and it's only one. That's the rule.
Okay. Thank you. I have a question to Lantice about AI again, with respect to the disclosure statement, Lantice. There's different versions of AI, and universities are also allowing people to use their, another version of AI that is with probably more security measures and so on. Should people then declare what version of AI they use when they do their disclosure?
Yes, I would say they should disclose the version and the tool they use.
And for versions that are supposed to be more secure than others, does that change anything in your policies?
No, I would say, authors should always use these type of AI tools to protect their own rights. So
Yes.
they can mention that they're, like, for example, we also at Elsevier, we also have enterprise ChatGPT access. That's if I'm using this to improve my article, then I would declare this is the model I use and which version I use. For example, I think there are various like 4.2, or depending on how, like, you want a quick response or you want a very deep research, then provide a model and all the details. Just be transparent.
Thank you. Okay, we're reaching the end of the session and there are no other questions. Are there any final burning questions that people want to ask before we bring this to a close? If that's the case, please do so in the next 10 seconds, 15 seconds or so. Otherwise, I would like to thank all panelists there, Professor Thierry Poinsot, Professor Fokion Egolfopolous, and Dr. Lantice Brett for what I thought was very informative and timely session. So I also thank Elsevier and the Combustion-Institute for bringing this to bear. And I hope I've certainly learned quite a bit out of this session, and I hope the audience have done so. We've got 50 participants here, and we had a good bunch of questions. The recording will be made available to all. I guess it will be made available very soon as well for those who've missed it. So there is no more questions. It looks like we've answered everything there. So thanks again to everyone. Have a good day and keep working on your papers for combustion flame. Good papers. Thank you very much.
Thank you, everyone.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Have fun.
Bye.